Hey, what's up guys? Matt Laidlaw here, coming to you from San Clemente, California, my hometown. So I'm super excited right now because I'm out on my first ride on my brand new 2018 Street Glide Special in the Bonneville Salt Denim. I finally pulled the trigger, guys, so this is kind of my bike reveal slash test ride and review on the brand new 2018 Street Glide Special. So I'm going to be doing a bunch of customization stuff in the near future on this bike, guys. It's not going to remain stock. Right now it's stock for purposes of this review, but in about a month or so I'm going to be doing a bunch of customization work. So stay tuned for my future videos on all the stuff that I'm going to be doing to customize this thing.
Alright guys, so let me jump into some of the details on this brand new 2018 Street Glide Special. So this year they applied a lot of pretty cool, unique cosmetic changes to these bikes. Namely, they blacked them all out from the factory. The bike you're seeing here is 100% stock the way it ships from the factory. So mostly all the cosmetics, all the engine finishes, exhaust, the front forks, the wheels are all blacked out. You got stretched bags on these bikes here. You can see how the bag drops down halfway down the exhaust and has that kind of that wraparound exhaust look in the back. You've got the Milwaukee 8 engine on this bike. This is a 4-valve per cylinder, single cam driven, 107 cubic inch engine. This just came out last year in the 2017 model year launch. That was kind of the big thing in the 2017 model year, was the Milwaukee 8 just came out. And then this year with the new Softail frame, they applied the same engine into the Softails with an additional counterbalancer on there. So there is still a certain degree of vibration on the touring bikes because it is a rubber mounted engine as opposed to a solid mount. So, you know, some of the details here, like the lower fairing skirting, the front forks all blacked out. You've got a dual halogen bulb headlamp in here. This headlamp is not as good as the Road Glide stock lighting. The Road Glide has dual LED reflector lights, so the lighting is better on the Road Glide. I'll be comparing this bike to the Road Glide quite a bit in this video just because people like to draw that comparison. These bikes are kind of neck and neck as far as, you know, people trying to decide which of these two they want. So, you know, everything from your bars, your center console all blacked out. Here's a shot of the stretched bags. You can see the bags that wrap around the exhaust back there. Before this model year, you could only buy these bags out of the parts and accessory catalog or get them on a CVO. So they come stock on the Street Glide Special now. Here's a shot of the seat, the center console, the bars all blacked out. You got the fairing mounted mirrors. That's something kind of unique to the Street Glide. The rear tail light bar is black as well. When the Road King Special came out in the mid-model year launch in 2017, I saw they applied some of these same cosmetic characteristics to the Road King Special. When I saw that, I predicted they were going to do the same thing to the Street Glide and the Road Glide. So I held off buying a bike. Sure enough, I was right. They did it. And so when they announced the Street Glide Special, I was super happy with the fact that they blacked it all out because I really like this look a lot. I'm sure a lot of you guys saw my last Street Glide Special. I spent a lot of time and money in powder coating everything all black. So it was nice to have all this stuff come from the factory all blacked out. So here you can see outer primary, derby cover, horn, everything's all black. You do have a certain amount of chrome highlights, like on the upper rocker box covers there. Certain highlighted points on the engine are still chrome. So here's a shot of the gauges. This is a 6.5 inch infotainment system that came out in the 2014 model year with the Project Rushmore. So my last bike was a 14 Street Glide Special, so it had all the same equipment as far as your electronics and your infotainment system, they call it. You can get the infotainment system in two different sizes. This is the bigger of the two. This is a 6.5 inch. You can also get it in a 4.3 inch as well on the Street Glide Standard. The speakers are upgraded on the Specials this year as well. This is a 6.5 inch speaker. They don't have the 300 watt amp to back it up though, so these are still just 25 watts per amp. So you don't really see that significant of an audio boost stock with just the 6.5 inch speakers as compared to the 5.3 inch, I believe is what it is. So you got a hydraulic clutch on these bikes. That's standard equipment since the 2014 model year with the Project Rushmore, so nothing really significantly new there. Your 4 gauges, you got your fuel, your speedometer, your RPM, and your voltage. Here's the fuel door. In 2014 with the Project Rushmore, they went to everything called One Touch. That includes like your saddlebags and your fuel door to open up with just one hand. You got a 6-gallon fuel tank, 91 octane only. Or if you live at a different area other than California, it's probably a different octane rating, but premium is what they're looking for. These right here, I get asked this a lot. What are those little button things right there? Those are placeholders. If you ever want to add buttons for like additional lighting equipment or heated clothing, you can put the buttons right there. With this toggle switch that I just showed you, you can toggle between your odometer, a trip A, a trip B. You have a remaining mileage for your current fuel tank, and then your odometer, like I said. So that kind of cycles through those different digital options. Here's a shot of the headlamp. It's okay, from the factory. This is not the best lighting. There's a lot better options out there. I'll be going to an LED light when I do, my customization on this bike. So here's a shot of the seat. This seat's kind of your one size do all seat. It doesn't do anything great, but it's kind of a jack of all trades. It's a 2-up seat. Passenger seat's not very comfortable, but it's kind of a low contour seat that is a more sleek styling seat on it. You've got kind of this hologram type style inlay on the center console and on the air cleaner cover. I don't really know how I feel about it. I'll definitely take it off the air cleaner cover because I'm changing that completely. I'll probably take it off the center console as well. Kind of reminds me of like my folders when I was in 2nd grade. You got kind of that hologram type look. So yeah, I'm not really digging that too much, but that's all right. So this is the vented fairing. This was part of Project Rushmore in 2014 as well. What that does is when you open it up, it kind of equalizes the air pressure in the rider bubble, which really helps when you're going on the freeway at higher speeds. You basically get rid of that uneven wind fluttering on your helmet, so it's more of a smooth airflow hitting your face. Another thing they did as well is they went to a new wheel design. This is called the Talon wheel. It's a 19-inch front wheel and an 18-inch wheel in the rear as opposed to a 16-inch. Last year it was a 16-inch wheel. So bigger wheels now. The Road Glide Special and Street Glide Special still have the old Enforcer wheel style with the 16-inch rear wheel. So I definitely prefer the wheels this year as well, especially with the blacked out cosmetics. I'm going to go into Harley-Davidson.com here and show you guys some kind of close-up photography that they took of the bike. This is the Twisted Cherry, by the way. The bike only comes in 4 colors this year, and then also the anniversary color. But yeah, I'm a huge fan of the overall look of the bike. They look really, really good, and they really don't need a whole lot to make the bike, look really custom. I'm sure though that after this, all blacked out fad kind of runs its course, the blacked out look won't really look custom anymore, but we'll see. Maybe chrome will come back. But let me go over the colors with you. So the first one is Vivid Black. This is just your regular black they come out with every year on pretty much every bike. And this color looks really good too, by the way. This is Twisted Cherry. This is a brand new color they have out this year. They applied this color to several of the different models, but I'm a huge fan of this. I was kind of at one point thinking about that color, but I'm actually a huge fan of the denim paint and the colors that are kind of unique. So yeah, I went with the Bonneville Salt, which is that last color. This is called the Hard Candy Hot Rod Flake. This is a hard candy color, so it's a really heavy metal flake. It's like that 10-step layering process they go through. This is called Legend Blue Denim. This is a 115-year anniversary bike. This bike is very exclusive. We haven't even gotten one yet. We'll probably only get one this model year. So it's a hard bike to find. If you want one, you should leave a deposit on one immediately because they will be in very limited supply. Here's some highlights here. So once again, all blacked out, 19-inch talon wheel in the front, 18-inch in the rear, stretched bags. You have the ABS security and the infotainment system, the bigger one, all standard across the board. Let me jump into some statistics here. So they claim 111 foot-pounds of torque. That's at the crank. I'll show you guys kind of a chart showing you at the wheel figures as far as horsepower and torque. So I'm going to compare three bikes here, the Street Glide Special, the Road King, and the Heritage. So first of all, pricing. The Street Glide Specials are about $26,000. The Road King and the Heritage are about $20,000, depending on how they're equipped. I didn't include the Road Glide or the Road Glide Special in this comparison just because, statistically speaking, they're pretty much identical on paper to the Street Glide Special. So as far as options, the Special comes with ABS and security and the bigger infotainment system as standard equipment. The Road King, you can get it with or without ABS and security. The Heritage, you have the option of the 114 and ABS. Standard security comes on all the Softails. And if you buy the 114 and a Softail, it comes standard with the ABS as well. So the 114 versions are pretty much your fully loaded version. So here's a shot, kind of the displacement, the stroke, and the bore in each of these. So the stroke is all the same on all of them, with the Heritage being a 107. On the 114, it's got a longer stroke and a bigger bore. And compression ratio is 10-1 on the Touring Milwaukee 8s. And also on the 107 with the Heritage, it's 10.5-1 on the 114. And the seat height, I will point out, on the Street Glide is 0.2 of an inch lower than the other two at 26.1. The Street Glides and the Road Glides, guys, are have the low profile shocks on them, so they are lowered when compared to like a Road King or like an Electra Glide or like a Road Glide Ultra. I actually prefer the taller suspension. It's a smoother riding bike, but you got that low profile look with the shorter. So here's the wheels. I already went over this for a second, but it's got a 19-inch wheel in the front and an 18-inch wheel in the rear. That's up 2 inches from last year. The Road King and the Street Glide, all the touring bikes have a 6-gallon fuel tank, guys, and all the Softails, well, not all of them, but they either have a 5 or a 3.5 gallon tank, depending on what model it is. Some of them, yeah, they're like the Street Bob and the Fat Bob and the Breakout, they all have a 3.5 gallon tank. So the weight, 836 pounds, and the Softails or the Heritage is 728, so 100 pounds heavier on these touring bikes. So the Softails run faster and are a more agile bike, guys. If you want a bike that you can ride harder and, you know, accelerate faster and, you know, get through traffic and go in and out of turns really fast, then the Softails are a better overall handling bike than the touring bikes. When I say touring bikes, that's anything on the touring chassis. So in this example, the Street Glide and the Road King are both on the touring chassis. The Heritage is on the Softail chassis. This is a brand new chassis they just came out with this model year, in the 2018 model year. So the engine torque, so these bikes, they put out 111 foot-pounds of torque. The 114 Softail puts out 119 foot-pounds of torque, so not a huge difference. Lean angle is better on the touring bikes, believe it or not. That was actually kind of a surprise to me. They increased the lean angle by a lot this year, the 2018 Softails, but still the Softails have not quite as dramatic of a lean angle as the touring bikes do. You can lean over the touring bikes pretty dang good. And so you can see fuel economy there, 45 miles to the gallon on the touring bikes, 47 miles to the gallon on the Softails. That's probably just due to the extra weight on the touring bikes. And the wheels, so the Talon wheel, they're all cast aluminum wheels. The Heritage has the gloss black steel laced wheel. And the Road King, they call it the Impeller. On the old Street Glides or the Street Glide standards and the Road Glide standards, they call it an Enforcer wheel. I get asked a lot of questions about power, so here's a power chart for you guys. So as you can see on the 107, Your horsepower is about 80 horsepower at 5,000 RPM. This is at the rear wheel. These charts, by the way, come out of Harley-Davidson's parts and accessory catalog. However, I've seen several sources that put these bikes up on the dyno themselves, and these numbers are pretty dang accurate. Everything is within like 2 or 3 horsepower of one another. So yeah, these numbers are going to be pretty much right on the money. I will point out these bikes are a lot more capable of higher horsepower. At a stage 4 with a 114 kit, you're right above 120 horsepower. If you're a guy that likes high horsepower, then knock yourself out and get the 114 cubic inch with a stage 4 build. It's a different cam. Really, it's all about the cam and the power delivery. Harley-Davidson stock just deliver a lower end torquey feel to them. Here's your torque. So you're about 100 foot-pounds of torque. And again, this is at the rear wheel. I know a second ago I showed you 111 foot-pounds of torque, but that's at the crank. And if you want to do the 107, or excuse me, the 114 with the stage 4, you're going to get about 115 foot-pounds of torque. This is a kit that I'm thinking about doing, the stage 2, which is just a retune and a different cam to deliver the torque a little bit earlier. I'm all about the low-end torque feel of a Harley-Davidson. That's why I like them. You know, horsepower is great, and I love the stage 4 kit as well. Really, if money wasn't an object, I'd probably do the stage 4. But you know, and one of the things that a lot of the sport bike guys always criticize Harleys about is their horsepower rating. And you know, horsepower is great, but 90% of the guys that have these sport bikes that do 170 horsepower will actually never really even feel that power. So when it comes to real world power, Harley-Davidsons have a really good, strong, low-end power delivery, but you know, they just can't get up to that 150, 160, 170 mile per hour range where you need that higher end horsepower. Of course, you know, if you do one of these stage 4 kits, you know, those things really do well, and the power continues to climb all the way through the RPM range, all the way up to red line. So if you guys saw my Street Glide Special review last year, not a whole lot has changed in the way of, you know, handling and the performance and the power and everything. Really the big changes this year were all in the cosmetics, and I already went over all those things. But for those of you who didn't see my video last year, let me lay out some things for you. So the Street Glide is the #1 best-selling Harley-Davidson right now, at least in the United States it is. And it's just a really good all-around bike. It is on Harley-Davidson's touring chassis, which is set up for, you know, the best long distance, like freeway, highway, long duration type riding with the best amount of storage space as well. So in 2006, Harley-Davidson came out with the Street Glide, and it kind of came as a result, in my opinion, of people buying electric glides and taking off the tour pack and stripping them all down to kind of be a minimalist type bike that still had the fairing with the radio. And so Harley-Davidson recognized that a lot of people were doing this. So in 2006, they came out with the Street Glide. So it's kind of Harley-Davidson's answer to delivering high-end comfort to people for, you know, really good freeway riding comfort, but still having a really cool sleek styling to it. There are a lot of guys, and there still are a lot of guys, that just don't like the look of the full dressers, like the Ultra Limiteds with the big tour pack on there, the taller suspension, the bigger, puffier padded seats. So everything's more of a lower contour seat, lowered suspension, and you do compromise some of the comfort when you do that. But you know what it loses in comfort, it makes up for in the looks and the appeal. So this is what Harley-Davidson, and most people, nicknamed the Batwing fairing, the other fairing being the shark nose fairing, which can be found on the Road Glide. So this is one of 2 fairing shapes that Harley-Davidson has, and that's really the big argument, and the big question is I get asked a lot. People say, well, what's better, the Street Glide or the Road Glide? What's better, the Batwing fairing or the Shark Nose fairing? And really, it all comes down to preference, guys. And let me just try to highlight some of the differences right now if you guys are deciding on what to buy, maybe I can help you out a little bit. So I prefer the Batwing fairing, and mostly that's due to the fact that the Batwing fairing is smaller, it has less surface area, there's less ABS plastic and molding there. So I just like the smaller fairing. The fairing is fork mounted. For whatever reason, I just like the fairing that is fork mounted, that swivels with the steering. It's just a preference. Now the Road Glide fairing, that is a stationary fairing that is frame mounted, and the steering moves independently of the fairing. A lot of guys will argue that the steering is lighter and more nimble, and going down the highway, the Shark Nose fairing isolates your steering from high winds, and a lot of people will argue that the Shark Nose fairing handles a lot better in high wind situations. And I would agree with that to a smaller degree than most people would want you to believe. Both of these bikes handle extremely well in high wind situations, going at high speeds down the highway. I have no problem and no hesitation taking the Street Glide out in a high wind situation and going over 100 miles an hour. So really what it boils down to is your preference. I will say the lighting on the Road Glide, like I said already, is a little bit better. You got dual LED reflector headlamps. On this bike, it's a single dual halogen bulb, which doesn't light up the road nearly as good as the Road Glide. The Road Glide in the past was kind of a tall man's bike because it was a further reach to the fairing and the bars. In the 2015 model year, when they redesigned the Road Glide, they brought the fairing and the bars closer to the rider, 5 inches to be exact. So really, you don't have to be super tall to ride a Road Glide anymore. I like the positioning of the screen a lot better on the Batwing fairing because it's closer to you. It's a lot less susceptible to sun glare. The Road Glide fairing is a little bit different angle. It's a little bit further situated from your body, and so I feel like it's a little bit harder to read on the fly when you're really looking down real quick to get some information you need. As far as the freeway, the touring chassis bikes in the Harley-Davidson world are among the best suited motorcycles for high-speed, long-duration type riding. There's really nothing a whole lot better out there. You combine that with the styling and everything, Harley-Davidsons are among the best touring bikes in the world, and this bike does really, really well. I will say that the Street Glide Special, or all the Street Glides for that matter, have a lowered suspension to them. I think Harley-Davidson does this for two reasons. They want their bikes to fit more people, and they want it to have that slammed low profile, and I really can appreciate the look and the low profile of it. However, I will say with the limited travel and the suspension could be better on big bumps that I'm hitting here on the road, like the potholes and stuff like that. You definitely feel it. You don't sail right over them. You can feel the big dips and stuff in the road. I will say last year in the 2017 model year, in addition to coming out with the Milwaukee 8 engine, Harley-Davidson completely revamped the suspension on all their touring bikes. They came out with a dual bending valve front Showa suspension, which is on the 2018 models as well, and that really helped out a lot. What it did specifically is it really helped control the rebound of the shock, and so it helps put the tire back on the wheel in a quick, efficient manner, so you've got that contact of the rubber to the road, and the suspension's pretty dang good. In the rear, you've got the coil-over gas emulsion chamber shocks that have a hand adjustable dial to them. One of my best pieces of advice is if you purchase one of these bikes, you really need to adjust that suspension according to the weight you have on the bike. If you're riding with a passenger, you'll need to adjust it. You can't just put a solo rider and then a two-up riding situation on the bike and expect the suspension to perform optimally. You have to adjust it according to the weight for it to really give you the best performance. So the suspension's pretty dang good. I would say that there is room for improvement there, and again, it's hard to get the best performing suspension with a limited range of travel on these shocks. If you go like a Road King or like a Ultra Limited, those have a taller rear shock, so those bikes are more comfortable going down the highway. You combine that with a more pillowy type seat, and the Ultra Classic or the Ultra Limited, they have a better overall ride comfort. The fairing is very, very nice. After riding a fairing model in Street Glides for years and years, whenever I get back on a bike that does not have a fairing on it, going down the highway is just kind of miserable after about 30-40 minutes. You have kind of a hang on for dear life type of a situation. That's kind of an over exaggeration, but you just there's really no substitute to having all the wind deflected off of you with the fairing, especially if you're going on long rides. And that kind of leads me to one of the reasons why I went with the Street Glide. I know a lot of you guys have been watching me review the new Softails and rave about how good they are, and they really are great bikes. But at the end of the day, I have to get the bike that is the best suited for my stature and my riding preferences, the type of riding I do the most. And really, I do a ton of freeway riding. Us people in Southern California are on the freeways a lot. And I'm also 6'6" tall, so I need Harley-Davidson's biggest frame. And quite frankly, if they had a bigger frame than this, I would go for the bigger frame than this, just because I like to stretch out. I'll need to get a different seat. I'm changing my handlebars, and I'm doing a couple things to make the bike fit me a little bit better. Right now, stock, I feel pretty scrunched up on this bike. I feel like if you're about 6 feet tall, you're perfect for a touring bike. You should be able to touch no problem, and once you are touching and you got your feet up on the floorboards, the ergonomics and the rider triangle, the relationship between the grips, the seat, and the floorboards should be perfect for you. But on the shorter end, if you're I'd say maybe about 5'8", 5'9", that's about as short as you can be to still comfortably be flat-footed on this bike. If you're much shorter than that, you're going to be on your toes. And some guys don't mind that. I usually say if you have at least the balls of your feet on the ground, it should be rideable for you. But some guys like to be flat-footed, and I get it. But anyways, the Street Glide Special, the stereo system is good. I'm going to be doing kind of a review and kind of a tutorial on this infotainment system. The system's been out now for since 2014, so about 4 model years. But I'm going to be doing kind of an overview on this because I've had a lot of people request an overview on this infotainment system, so I'll be doing that. I'm going to go get some lunch right now. This is kind of a local's favorite spot, Pedro's Tacos. It's been here forever. And I'm going to go in the exit there, so ignore that, please. Another thing about this bike, you got a hydraulic clutch. And the hydraulic clutch came out on these bikes, like I said, in 2014 model year on the Project Rushmore. I really like the hydraulic clutch a lot. It's really smooth, and the actuation is always very predictable. The clutch never goes out of adjustment, so you don't need to adjust the clutch at your services. You just need to have it checked, and your cable doesn't stretch. And I feel like the cable clutches, you got to lube them, and it's just not a really smooth actuation. So I prefer the hydraulic clutch on these bikes as well. Transmission is a 6-speed. 6 gear is kind of an overdrive gear, so you're only going to want to use that really when you're going down the highway on flat surface. If you're going to go up like an incline, you should downshift into 5th. That's where your power is going to be. So if you're looking for a new bike and you're trying to decide between a touring bike and a new Softail, here's what I would try to ask myself if I were you. If you plan on doing like high-speed freeway riding a lot and you're okay with compromising a little bit of the handling and the acceleration, then the touring bike is going to be your best bet, especially if you plan on riding with a passenger quite a bit. And if you're a bigger guy as well, the touring bike is going to fit you a lot better and just look a lot better as well. The Softails, I feel like even got a little bit smaller this year. Not a bunch, but a little bit. And so yeah, if you're a big dude, and when I say big, if you're like 220 plus, like 6'3", 6'4" plus, then a touring bike is going to be a lot better suited for you. Just the chassis is just set up for a bigger guy and better stretched out, more stretched out. Also, you've got the storage space with the bags. A lot of these things, guys, if you ride with a fairing and with bags for a long time, it's difficult to ever go back just because having storage space is so convenient. But if you're someone that just likes to take your bike out on the weekend and just haul ass around town, or hit the canyons, You like to ride aggressively through the turns. The Softails are a lot better, more agile handling bike than the touring bikes ever will be. I will say in 2009, Harley-Davidson changed the chassis on the touring bikes. That was the last time that Harley really had a major platform change. Of course, this year they rehauled the Softails. But since the 2009 change on these touring bikes, these bikes, for what they are, for a big heavy touring bike, they handle really, really well. I've had a lot of guys, that's usually the first comment I get when someone goes to a Street Glide or a Road Glide or any of these touring bikes, is they're very surprised at how well these bikes do through the canyons or 2-lane windy highways. They handle really, really, really well, and the lean angle's really dang good on them as well. So for what they are, they handle really well, but they're still not going to compare to a Softail. After riding Softails a lot, the new ones, I get back on these touring bikes and I felt like these were a little bit sluggish. But then after riding this bike for a while, these things have plenty of giddy up and go. It's just the new Softails are that much faster off the line and just accelerate that much harder. So hopefully that clears it up for you. As far as the debate between the Road Glide and the Street Glide, I would say look at them both. Get the one that you like the look of better. Ride them both. Get a feel for the ergonomics and kind of the riding style. I feel like the Road Glide has more of a from the top down tiller type bar setup and handling, so it's a little bit different handling. I feel like the Street Glide is more of a conventional steering angle on the head, so that's one thing I like about the Street Glide a little bit more as well. Just I feel like the handling and the bars are a little bit sportier setup, if you can use the word sporty on a big touring bike like this. So that's really what it boils down to. The other thing is with the fairings, you have a little bit better bar choice with the Road Glide. You are less inhibited by the fairing to get bars. That being said, the Street Glide, this Batwing fairing bike, has a lot of bars that are made for it out there. Harley has several different bars, and there's a lot of different aftermarket companies that make bars that fit this bike as well. So you got plenty of options as far as bars go. In this video, I didn't really dive into the accessory catalog like I've been doing in some of the Softail videos. I feel like the Softails are new enough to where people don't really know exactly everything that can be attached onto the bike in the way of luggage racks and backrests and everything. But in short, on these touring bikes, guys, these are kind of the best platform for attaching passenger backrests, additional tour packs, luggage racks, and things of that nature for utility and comfort on these bikes. Everything is just bigger as well, so you have more storage space in the tour packs. The backrests are bigger, so more comfort, better suited for larger people as well. So yeah, if you're a petite person, or maybe you're 100, you have a passenger who's like 150 pounds, who's 5'5", 5'6", 5'7", they'll probably be fine on a Softail. But the touring bikes are just better suited for larger people that are bigger than that. And the tour packs, you can do the King tour pack or the chopped tour pack. My last Street Glide, I had the chopped tour pack. I'd like to do that on this bike again. I probably won't do that initially, but eventually I'll probably get the chopped tour pack as well for those longer trips. But the touring bikes are awesome for clipping on stuff onto the back. You just have to buy the 4-point docking hardware, and on the 4-point docking hardware, any attachment that Harley makes that bolts onto the back of these, or clips onto the back I should say, will fit onto that hardware. So that about does it for this video, guys. If you have any questions, as always, leave them in the comments section. I just started a Patreon account recently, guys. What I've found is that I can't get to everybody's comments every single time, and I know a lot of people leave me these really long comments, or I've had people calling me at work, and unfortunately I can't get back to everybody. I just don't have enough time in the day. I still try to comment back to everybody and read everybody's comments and answer questions where I can, but unfortunately I can't take calls at work as it pertains to just questions involving my YouTube videos. That's just kind of outside of the bounds of what I'm paid to do at work. Now, if you're looking to buy a bike, if you live in California and you want to buy a bike from me, that's a different story. But to answer just questions about the YouTube channel, I can't really do that through my work phone. And so if you want to communicate with me, really the best way to do that at this point is to direct message me on Instagram. Or if you want to support my channel, if you get a lot of good info from my channel, check out my Patreon account. I will put a link in the description to that. I appreciate everything you guys do as far as watching and commenting on the videos. And I appreciate everybody that had their speculation about what bike I was going to buy and everything. And stay tuned, guys. I'm going to be doing a lot of stuff to this bike. I got a cool project in mind that I think a lot of you guys will like. Thanks for watching again, guys. Take care.